Welcome to On the Chain. Chip here, flying the plane solo yet again. And it's going to be that way for, that's right, at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks you'll be here with your boy Chip. It'll be solo flying days, which is a lot to carry. It's never fun when Jeff's not here. So I suspect we'll bring in some guests to kind of hang out and sort of do some banter back and forth. The co-host in for Jeff. But Jeff's doing well. He's just he's got a heavy schedule ahead of him, and so that's why he will be joining us probably back in a little bit. But I want to get to today's sort of topic, XRP. We're going to talk a little bit about that and go into Ripple's new custody service. It's kind of a pretty big deal. I know we talked about it yesterday. We'll chat about that a little bit more. And Jim Cramer making a big prediction about the election cycle. What is his prediction exactly? And we know Jim Cramer's track record, but who is he thinking is going to win the election? And then, of course, the SEC steps in it over and over again. I mean, they just can't help themselves. And some more election coverage because we're within 30-day window here of the presidential election. So if you guys are ready, why don't we get this puppy started? Let's get going.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome, everybody, to On the Chain on this fine Saturday evening, wherever you're joining us from. I don't know where you're joining us from. Drop it in the comments. We definitely have Crypto Whelp in from Belgium, and it's, gosh, what time is it there? It's got to be 2 a.m, maybe, over there in Belgium, at least. But I'll tell you what's great is some good Belgian ale. Good morning. We got Devon Steve coming in from down under. Good to see you. We got, of course, Chad, always from Celebration. Always a celebration there. Vince Scully. Jim Cramer thinks Die Hard with a Vengeance sucks. Shake my head. You never can, you never can predict. If Trump loses, the West will fall, in my opinion. Well, I don't think he's going to lose. I think it's going to be a massive landslide victory from what I'm seeing and from the internal polls for Harris are not good. And if you've noticed why she's on all these channels, making the rounds, doing all these interviews, if you want to call them that, if you want to see what, let me do an uncomfortable beer moment when she went on Stephen Colbert and she says, let's have a beer together. Yeah, it was one of the most cringiest moments of the election cycle. And this is how she drank the beer, like this. Barely took a sip. Like, nobody drinks beer like that, okay? You can pretend, okay, yeah, let's drink a beer together, but you're not drinking a beer, okay? You don't drink beer normally. Miller High Life was the beer you selected. I don't know. It just seems really weird to me. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But I want to jump into this topic here. Drop where you guys. Hello, B-Mac. Good day. Hello, good day. I think I have a sneeze coming on. I don't know why. All day long, didn't sneeze, but here we go. I don't know why I go live and then I start sneezing like crazy. I don't know what it is. Who knows what it is? But I think I did save your ears on that one. El Jefe's here. Hey, guys. Wow, nothing like getting ass kicked. 2 different hurricanes last 2 weeks. It's been rough, man. It has been a rough one. Not going to lie. What is with the hurricanes, right? It's kind of a weird sort of a deal here. But I wanted to get into this topic here and jump into this. But this was a really good article that was written by FinTech Futures, and they go really a little bit deeper than a lot of other places. But one of the things they talked about here with Ripple on their new custody, offering that single platform for safeguarding and managing digital assets designed with the security and compliance standards top global banks and financial institutions have come to rely on. And they kind of break it down here. New features and functionality include AWS Cloud HSM, that's Amazon Cloud there. Ripple Custody simplifying the onboarding deployment experience by providing customers the optionality to use HSM on cloud provider of their choice. Also, they have pre-configured operational and policy frameworks. This is how you deploy pre-configured Ripple custody operations and policy frameworks added to features to simplify selecting, deploying, maintaining, and using the Ripple custody platform. This is going to help with a lot of legal stuff. Of course, the XRPL integration, which allows for fungible XRPL tokens, creating new opportunities for asset digital representation, unlocking liquidity, support from the native decentralized exchange at XRPL. And the companies can also seamlessly trade assets with minimal fees. Then you've got compliance integration with Elliptic for transactional screening services to help customers monitor transactions in real time. It also provide better ability to assess risks, make decisions based on defined risk policies, to meet regulatory requirement and build trust. Ripple will support additional compliance services in the future, and then a better UI and usability, updated, more intuitive UI, improve also integrations with external identity partners, allow users to log in via their preferred OAuth or OIDC-based systems, providing greater flexibility and convenience for enterprise customers. And I'm guessing they're probably all enterprise customers. I could be wrong here, but I'm guessing the majority of the people they're working with are that. And you use some sort of OAuth to get in there to log in or OIDC. Ripple Custody also seeing continued momentum with 250% year-over-year customer growth. It's a solution offering across the largest global financial markets, including Switzerland, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, the United States, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Today, Ripple Custody serves top-tier banks, financial institutions, and crypto services or businesses around the world, including BBVA, Switzerland, Societe Generale, Forge, DBS, Rule Match, Archex, Futureverse, and more. Now, Futureverse is a bank. I don't know how that got in there, but anyway, I think they're just talking about the vast services or the folks they're working with. Also says Ripple serves customers in over 55 countries, 6 continents, payout capabilities in 80 plus markets, also a decade of experience in regulated business in the digital asset space, holds 55 plus regulatory licenses and registrations in various jurisdictions. This is big, and this has grown quite a bit, right? These regulatory licenses and registrations. So that's pretty much it, but I just wanted to kind of do a little bit deeper dive on that little bit right there. So let's go back over to the comments here. What else do we have going on? Geoengineering, anyone? Doesn't Gates have a patent on controlling hurricanes? Yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, people have been saying about about all these conspiracy theories about these hurricanes. Like, where are these hurricanes coming from? But traditionally, hurricanes will come off of the African coast, right? They'll spin off and they'll move across the Atlantic Ocean, and somewhere they'll get closer to land, right? Now, what's weird is that this last hurricane kind of came out off of Mexico, and that's very unusual. Now, the only one that's come close to that was one forming over the top of Cuba, and that was years ago. But this one came out of nowhere, and it strengthened to a 5 in no time. Even the ones that come off of Africa take some time to build before, they're first a tropical storm, then they go to a Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3. But this one was it went from a tropical storm to like Cat 5 in like 24 hours or like 2 days. It was really fast. And so people are like, and then people were posting things of the planes flying the same pattern that the hurricane goes, and dropping stuff and changing all of a sudden direction. Every time a plane would fly, people correlated that the hurricane changed direction. I don't know. If there's any bearing in that, I don't even know. It could be kooky, nutty stuff, could be conspiracy stuff. But it is weird, right? There's a lot of weird oddities to that. Then people digging up the fact that in the Carolinas there, where they just signed a big deal that like the biggest deposit in the U.S. of lithium batteries happens to be there, and it just happened to get hit with a hurricane. And you had issues where you had down in Hawaii. I'm just saying, a lot of people have a lot of conspiracy theories that they talk about there. What's going on, Johnny? Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Project Harpoon, there he is, right there. So I don't know. Sometimes the conspiracies have a bit of truth. Sometimes they're completely made up nonsense. Where do we sit on that one? I really do not know. What else do we have here? Oh, so this one here, I teased this one a little bit. But Jim Cramer, who's famously made predictions, which he's famously been pretty wrong on a lot of his predictions. But who is he calling for to win the U.S. presidential race? Well, here we go. Here it is. Breaking. Jim Cramer, known for his inaccurate predictions, predicts that Trump will lose the election. Cramer was quoted as saying, "I don't see how he wins." So if a track record stays the same, Jim Cramer is in for a big surprise, because let's just say if he goes one way, usually the opposite result is ready to happen. So there's something that, and I think it's great. Now, if he had predicted that Harris would win, I'd be a little bit weirded out, nervous, because but no, he doesn't see how he wins. But apparently he hasn't been paying attention to what's been going on. He doesn't know because he's insulated. He's got a great job. Everything's great for him. He's not worried about going to the store and buying milk and groceries. He doesn't care any about that. He doesn't care about the rising inflation. He doesn't care about the down job market. No, he's all set over there making his wacky predictions over there at CNBC. So he's got zero cares in the world. He doesn't give a rat's behind. So there you go. Devon Steve says, what is the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? Usually 6 to 18 months. Yeah, and that's time has been compressed. Usually sometimes I've seen it go even sooner, like with between 1 to 3 months, right? But usually it's right around there. And then all of a sudden, it's debunked until, well, those conspiracy nut jobs were, maybe in fact, they were absolutely right. B-Max saying that Cramer's prediction in this case is good news. I absolutely agree with that. He's shilling for my black pill scenario to swing the poly market. There you go. And what you're going to see is these polls are going to really tighten, and they don't want to be known as the poll that called it wrong and was off and was unreliable, because when the next propaganda season starts, they want to be at the height of the propaganda where they're trying to influence an election. And then right about 3 days before the election, the poll is going to come out and boom, Trump's ahead by 11 points. How is that? We've had Harris around because they want to be right. They don't want to be known as a wacky pollster that carries zero weight and didn't call it, right? So they will tighten quite a bit, and you're already starting to see a lot of movement in there already. So what else do we have here for the grab bag? Saw this post by Warren Davidson, and again, he's kind of talking a little bit about the SEC, but he says the SEC Commissioner Mark Ayuda admits that the SEC is a disaster for the whole industry and that the market needs clear guidance. And it's absolutely true. The only one that can really give clear guidance is Congress. Now, you know that the House passed that FIT 21 bill back a couple months ago. It's been sitting just shelved inside of, it goes it has to go from the House of Representatives over to the Senate. The Senate's supposed to vote on it. They haven't even looked at it. They don't care. The Senate is its own animal. They haven't looked at this thing. Now, even if the Senate were to pass it, and this would have been good, right? So suppose the House passed it already, the Senate passed it, and then it goes to the president, and the president vetoes it. Okay, well, you would know 100% that this is the vote's there, right? If you would say like, well, the Democrats voted for it, the Republicans voted for it, at least most of them, right? And then the president wasn't on board with it. But at least you would have that recorded. Now we don't even know, right? It would be said, well, we've heard that Harris is just making. She's gonna be all in on pro. She'd be pro crypto, but it's not on her platform. She put out her policy. It had like one little smidget of a mention of digital asset. It was really wonky to begin with. But Rep. Warren Davidson says in order to move forward, Congress needs to hashtag fire Gary Gensler, and he can with his bill. Number two, restructure the SEC, and that is what you can do is also, and provide legal clarity. So only Congress can really do this. What you have is the SEC, who has been largely interpreting the law, right? They've been interpreting the Howey test any way they feel like it, and they're going after companies, even if they say, well, the digital asset itself is not the security, it's the way you package it up, right? It has to have an investment contract. SEC doesn't care. They just go, they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. He goes on to say the SEC Stabilization Act and FIT 21 are must-pass legislation. And the Stabilization Act basically gets rid of the commissioner, or the chair, I should say, not the commissioners. They keep the commissioners, but the chair is gone. So that's how you get rid of Gary Gensler, right? People are like, well, you can't really technically get rid of him. Well, that's what you do. You pass the SEC Stabilization Act, and he's gone, because that's what it does. It stabilizes the SEC. And no longer do you have like a dictator that comes in, is going to dictate exactly how it's going to go. And these commissioners have zero power, right? They can vote on stuff, yeah, but they don't. And the weird thing too is they don't take their direction necessarily. Like they don't work for the chair. The chair is just a figurehead. And it's like largely voted on by, Congress, right? They vote in whoever the chair is. They vote for or against. Gary Gensler gets in, but this is how we get rid of him. In case anybody is wondering how you actually delete this guy, this is how you get rid of him. All together. All right. And then Elizabeth Warren, speaking of Warrens, a different type of Warren here, but Elizabeth Warren's going on. She said, now this is interesting the way she languaged this. One thing I picked up on, see you guys kind of read through this, see what you actually pick up about what she's actually saying here. She goes on to say, when I look back on what we've already accomplished, as if there's so much, right? Never passed one stinking bill in 12 years. It's like, who knows what it is? It's meaningless. If we look back on what we've already accomplished, I'm optimistic about what we can continue to achieve. I'm running for re-election to keep fighting for a government that works not just for the rich and the powerful, but for everyone. So tell me what's wrong with this statement. What is wrong with the second part of that statement about why she's running for re-election? And what if you contrast this again, John Deaton? John Deaton is running for the people of Massachusetts and fighting for the people of Massachusetts, right? What is Warren fighting for? Pocahontas, the fake Indian. What is she? She's fighting for a government that works not just for the rich and powerful, but she's fighting for the government. John Deaton is fighting for the people. This is a massive contrast and a big contradiction, right? Do you want a politician who's fighting for the government, or do you want a politician that's supposed to represent your views and represent you inside of Congress, right? In this case, the Senate. You got 2 senators from every state. So who's representing the people? It's not Elizabeth Warren, because she wants to represent, she's fighting for a government. This is a bad take right here. But again, they'll always tell you who they are. And this statement right here tells you all you need to know. This is all you need to know about who she is. She doesn't care about the people. She thinks she's bigger than life, and she's going to fight for the government. Wrong take. Sorry, doesn't pass the smell test right there. So they didn't have the debate yet. The debate, Al Hefe is asking, when did they have the debate? The debate is on the 15th. It's on Tuesday night. That is the debate. October 15th is the first debate. There's going to be 2. Now, one of the big issues I see with that is like they opened up early voting already. So a lot of people have already cast their vote. And this is the whole thing, what I don't like about having debates, basically, 2 weeks before an election cycle. It's not a good look. Your debates should be way ahead of time before any early voting starts, so that you have the option of seeing both candidates and weighing them. Right now, if you're Elizabeth Warren supporter, you say like, yeah, great, but you should at least give yourself the option to be able to see how does she perform, and maybe you're like, wait a minute, I don't want her fighting for the government. I want her fighting for me. I want her fighting for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I don't want her fighting for the government. So the way she languages that, and I have a feeling that John Deaton is going to be well prepared for this debate. He's a phenomenal debater, and I think he's going to do extremely well. And I think that Elizabeth Warren is a little bit scared. She hasn't had a really competent challenger. And there's nothing you can knock down about John Deaton. She's going to try to do the IVF stuff. She's going to try to say, oh, you're going to ban IVF. No. And you're going to, and John, despite the fact that he's a Republican, is pro-choice, so she's not going to get him on that. There's going to be a lot of tries where gotcha, but he's going to have some goods on her, and he's going to bring up her record because she has to defend her record and what she's done for the people of Massachusetts. John can also talk about, if anyone that knows his story, he talked about a poll that came out that said the people who know his story, he wins, right? So how many do enough people of Massachusetts know John Deaton? And that's something we'll come to learn more about in the coming days. But I think that'll be something probably we'll talk a lot about, or at least I'll talk about a lot on Wednesday night. Hopefully we'll have some footage from that. And we'll be able to sort of workshop that, take out the better bits of that debate. And one thing is for sure, it'll put John Deaton on the national sort of prominence because he's largely an unknown candidate. I've seen some national coverage of it, but you can bet that there will be national coverage of this debate because of who Warren is in the Senate and the fact that you've got a real challenger that's actually going up against her and to take her out, right? So John's going to be really prepared. It's going to be an awesome, I think John's going to do great. I can't wait to see. Now, one thing I will say, I will caution everybody that, remember, this is in Massachusetts. It's largely a blue state. If you know how these debates go, there's going to be a lot of hammering on John Deaton. There's going to be a lot of gotcha questions for Deaton. They're going to try to maybe fact check him because it's a state-run media over there. And so it's not going to be, you probably think, well, that was an unfair question, but it's going to lean very, very favorably towards Warren. So I have a feeling like just know that going in, that's the possibility. It'd be great if it wasn't, but just know that Massachusetts is about as blue as it gets. It's not a red state, completely blue, Democrat for how many years, right? But Deaton has a real chance because he's a real person and he's a fighter. So I have a feeling he's going to do awesome there. All right, what do we got here? What is going on here? So, I don't know. Now, Gary Gensler He is a complete stooge. But why do I have all this coming up on my thing? I don't know. I want to get rid of this. Oh my goodness. Maybe I can't get rid of it. It seems like they're trying to, there's a great article here and I wanted to read it, but unfortunately it looks like they're trying to get me to sign up. Let's see if no, they can't. That's a shame. That is a damn shame. But what are you going to do? This is what happens when you pull this kind of crap. No one's going to read your stuff and they move on. And so you get very limited amount of, let me see if I can find it another way. There's always a possibility that I could. Let's see. Let's see if this comes up this way. That's not what I wanted. Well, what are you going to do? It pulled up great when I pulled it up the first time until I started scrolling, and then it went into crappy mode. There it is again. Okay. Well, I'm going to put it up there anyway, so let's go. This was the article right here, and you can see what it's doing, all this garbage that I don't want. So what do? I just delete the tab is what I usually do. I'm not going to sign in. But Gary Gensler doubts that cryptocurrency future. He says that leading figures are either in jail or awaiting extradition. I mean, really, this is such a tired, old argument. They're either in jail or they're waiting for extradition. It's pretty pathetic. SEC Chair Gary Gensler cast doubt on crypto's future as a payment method and sees it more of a store of value. Okay, well, talking about Bitcoin there, buddy. There's thousands of blockchains and thousands of crypto. Just because he was a professor and he, for 3 years and he taught about, cryptocurrency, doesn't make him smart. It makes him, he gets dumber all the time. There was this one in Coinbase that I found. He said that he also called out the fraud in crypto. With all respect, the leading lights of this field in 2024 either in jail or waiting extradition. Gensler said the agency is a merit neutral and the investing public will get to decide through disclosures if there's a utility for any given. What's going to end up happening is Trump wins. And probably is going to swing the Senate as well. So they keep the House, keep the Senate, boom, start pushing through legislation, get rid of Gensler. Goodbye. And he'll be known as the worst chair ever. He's going to go down as the worst chair beyond. Gensler also cited Gresham's law, a monetary principle dating back to the 19th century that asserts that bad money drives out the good, and added that nations typically want just a single currency. That's not necessarily true, because the fact is that if you think about, the adoption of crypto and how many people embrace it, that doesn't hold true anymore. Now it traditionally does, right? Because there hasn't been any cryptocurrency. But the whole idea of the fact that your crypto will spend years and years, never catch up to all of the bad stuff that fiat has on it itself. He says you want one currency unit because it's a store of value, a medium of exchange, a unit of an account. It all has tremendous economics of networks, Gensler said. So it's unlikely this stuff is going to be a currency. It's going to have to show you value through disclosure, through use, the same way you pick amongst thousands of securities that are listed on the stock exchange. Well, his first assumption is really wrong here, because he's assuming that cryptocurrencies are securities, which they are not. You don't need disclosure because it's not regulated by the SEC. It's regulated by the CFTC because it is a cryptocurrency. And he's probably also missing that there have already been nations such as El Salvador and others that have already acknowledged that Bitcoin is a currency. So largely against his whatever his personal belief system is, not the reality that happens actually out there in the world. So he's going through this like, we need disclosures, we need to talk. Yeah, he's living in the past. This is a guy that's like well past his prime. The better days are well behind him. Yeah, sure, he has a $200 million in the bank, or 115 million, whatever it is, from his investment days. But this has passed him by. I mean, we're not moving backwards. We're moving forwards, and this is something that this guy is completely out of touch with. And fraudsters, grifters, and scams. So during the wide-ranging conversation with NYU law professor Robert Jackson, Gensler defended his agency's track record of aggressive enforcement. Without a cop on the beat, will all of our laws be enforced? Gensler asked. It's something about human nature. In finance, we play near the line. We sometimes need to bring the enforcement actions to bring people back to the right side of the line. Well, it's not about bringing people to a line. One of your first tenets is protecting investors. So if you think about this ongoing squabble with Ripple, where is the protection of the investors? Like, where is the tenet that you're supposed to be upholding? It's not about bragging people to a line and what you deem to be right or wrong, or the enforcement of going after people. But there's absolutely zero adherence to the principle of law, which is, where are the investors in this scenario? Where are they to be found? That's not in any of his stuff. He talks about people being grifters. He said there's no need for additional regulatory framework beyond the one granted by the Supreme Court in the Howey test. But then we have him in hearings where he is absolute opposite. It's like, if you want clear standards, well, you're Congress, go ahead and pass it, right? If you want to change it, then you pass it. But here what he's fine with is interpreting the Howey test. He's not fine with adhering to the Howey test. And the Howey test, what it happened, first of all, it didn't happen in 1940, but 1947. But who's counting, right? If anyone's wondering whether they might meet this time tested of what an investment contract, think of it this way. Who is the signing engagement letter with your law firm? There's a central enterprise. Someone's signing that engagement letter. Who's tapping on the door of the broker-dealer say, can you make a market of a particular asset? It belies logic, and there's no common enterprise at most. Yeah, he's, again, using old school thinking applied to a digital asset in a blockchain sort of a framework, right? Doesn't pass the sniff test. So anyway, I just wanted to, again, more stupidity from Gary Gensler. He's not winning anybody. And he's not if you look at the Democrat Party as a whole, he's even more hated, right? I mean, so you got a party that's largely anti-crypto, despite all the, well, they're going to pivot and they're going to do this. Well, there's not any pivot. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion. Again, a lot of times I state my opinion. What the hell? It's my podcast and Jeff, so we can state our opinion here. But my belief that Kamala Harris's her actual campaign ended when she went on The View, and they said, "Now, geez, what would you do different than Joe Biden?" Right? And she sat there and she looked around and she thought, and she said, nothing comes to mind. Now, that part I believe, because there's not a lot going on up there. It's like an empty, you might hear bolts rattling around if she like shakes her head too hard. That part I understand, right? But it's like nothing comes to mind. So you're telling us that you would have done everything to pull out of Afghanistan, right? Allowing 20 million illegals across the border, all of that. You wouldn't change anything. You wouldn't have 94 Trump's executive orders that had the border wrapped up tight. You wouldn't have said like, well, we might have kept some of those in place, right? She's also been asked if any of that was a mistake. She couldn't cop to that. And she started talking about the fact that she was raised in a middle-class family and her lawns were green and she had two moms and she did this and that, right? But she never really answers the questions. And I think a lot of it, she has not had the ability to answer the questions. People think she's deferring. She just doesn't have it. And then later that same day, she goes on Stephen Colbert, and he gives her another chance to redeem herself. Would you have done anything different? No. That's when her campaign ended. So all of this BS and gaslighting that we've been hearing from her about you have to elect her because she's got a plan and because her plan is going to be superior. Well, guess what? It's all a bunch of BS. It's gaslighting. She would do nothing different, and you could expect the same thing that you got in the Biden-Harris administration that you get in a Harris-Walz, right? And is this guy doing her any favors by out there, like doesn't even know how to use a shotgun? This guy can't even cock a shotgun. This is pretty bad. And then what the memes started flowing with people, instead of him putting, a shotgun casing in there, putting tampons in there, and then he's holding a giant tampon. Like, it's not doing you any freaking favors here. Chad says when Pocahontas says only criminals use crypto, what she means is there are people in the government, more specifically Democrats, that are using crypto to commit crimes. That could be, Gensler will be fired on day one, says El Jefe. BMAX says, I'm so disgusted my tax dollars are going towards unelected Gary's stupid musings. It's taxation without representation. Yeah, that's why that makes. Catherine's in here, says hello to everybody. BMAX says 100% the View appearance was the nail in the coffin, especially the geopolitical landscape continues to destabilize. Chad says Kamala's brain, a BB in a boxcar. There you go. Pretty much that. Her programmers forgot to include that. And then SoFlo is in here as well. What's going on? Good to see you. What else do we have in the grab bag today? Why are my things off here? What is going on? Oh, here's another one. So crypto.com got a Wells notice, but they didn't just sit back. So Crypto.com is now suing the SEC, Chair Gensler, after receiving a Wells notice. The case seeks to prevent the SEC from unlawfully expanding its jurisdiction to cover secondary market sales of certain network tokens sold on the exchange. And I love this, right? Because if you want to look at who actually taught companies to fight back against the SEC, you go back and say, well, Elon Musk did it. You can say went back. You can say Mark Cuban did it, right? They both fought the SEC. They won. However, if we think about modern times, we think about crypto. Who really did it? Who took the bull by the horns and did it? It was the guy named John Deaton, who and 76,000 other XRP holders basically took the SEC to task. And it was a company called Ripple. The Ripple didn't lay down. This is what I really like about Ripple is they had the wherewithal to be able to fight the SEC and said, no, you're wrong. This is absolutely, you got this framing this the wrong way. And $200 million later to defend themselves. And now they got to go into this appeal, which I believe they're going to win and humiliate the SEC and Gary Gensler even further. But these are the organizations between Ripple, John Deaton's of the world have taught the people how to fight against the SEC, not lay over and not die. So the notice warning the agencies considered bringing charges against the crypto exchange was sent on August 22nd. And then CEO Chris Marszalek said that it brought the case to limit the SEC's unauthorized overreach and unlawful rulemaking to protect the future of crypto in the U.S. This kind of stuff is fantastic. I mean, it is really great. SEC has been regulating crypto sector through a series of enforcement activities and approach to Crypto.com and others in the industry, including Binance, Ripple, Coinbase are fighting. And in August, OpenSea received a Wells notice alleging that non-fungible tokens, NFTs, are on its platform were securities. They're throwing everything out there. They're just completely lost its way, the SEC. OpenSea CEO Devin Finzer said that at the time, the company was shocked but ready to stand up and fight. In April, decentralized crypto exchange Uniswap also received a Wells notice, which it urged the SEC to withdraw. So I like the fact there's also safety in numbers. Also, it'd be interesting to see who dives in on the Ripple appeal, who else is going to file if we see somebody like a Coinbase joining. But there is safety in numbers, and this is where the community has to pull together and not put up with this BS nonsense. You cannot allow these organizations, the SEC, a runaway, completely run astray regulatory body that regulates securities that don't include digital assets to be okay. Now, the one thing that they have here is that the fact they've got some things to rely on. They already have some rulings out there. When you think of the fact that XRP was ruled not a security, they already have that. Now, we didn't have that before that ruling came down on July 13th of 2023, a little over a year ago. You didn't have that ruling. Now we have that ruling. So this is going to be really interesting to see. Crypto.com seeks declaratory and injunctive relief to prevent the Securities and Exchange Commissions from unlawfully expanding the jurisdiction into covering secondary market sales of certain network tokens sold on the company's platform. The suit was filed by Forest Dax Inc., a company incorporated under laws of the state of Delaware and operates under the business name of Crypto.com. The filing and the SEC determined network tokens except for Bitcoin and Ethereum's Ether as securities. Now, what's funny about Ether is there was another hearing coming up about Ether, and they've already delayed it. So are we going to see the SEC now go after Ether? I don't know. Is it going to be something where it's going to cause a tremendous pump and dump inside of with ETH? We're going to find out. But why would they delay something like that? I think there might be something else going on. This whole idea that ETH is in the clear, the only one that's in the clear is Bitcoin. There is no creator, there's nobody to go charge, right? It's one of the few. Now Ether is. You have the Ethereum Foundation. So interestingly enough, that's going to be also Crypto.com filed a petition, the SEC and other primary U.S. market regulator, the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission, known as the CFTC, to confirm via joint interpretation of certain cryptocurrency derivative products are solely regulated. And this is where they're making a good point, right? You're out of your jurisdiction right here. And that's what they're claiming the SEC is doing. They're trying to charge it as a security, and the fact that derivative products are covered under CFTC. So this is another one to really closely watch. We'll keep our eye on it. But I have a feeling that the SEC might get embarrassed once again, but that's a good thing. They don't almost seem to get embarrassed. They seem to be okay with almost everything that's going on. There seem to be There doesn't seem to be any shame over there, like almost no shame at all. I wanted to, so, it's funny, Charlie Gasparino, who's over there, correspondent over there at Fox, and if you guys remember early days, was doing a lot of interviews with John Deaton, and basically through the Ripple case. Now he's been pretty spot on. He's written a pretty cool book, and which he talks a little bit about. But I wanted to draw some attention because I find myself agreeing with him quite a bit. And he's not like a MAGA guy. He's not like a giant Trump supporter. But he's said disparaging things about Trump, but he makes a lot of sense here. And one of the things he calls attention here, he says, so he's talking about, here it is right here. You heard it first, 60s to new 30s. You got Tim Walz and the first knucklehead right here. Two knuckleheads, man, okay? And he's bringing some heat, Charlie is. He's like, so you're telling me that these middle-aged men, we want young men to emulate as they get older? One guy rationalizes tampons in the boys' room and lets a city burn in the name of social justice, and the other one knocked up the nanny, and God knows who else. Americans should hard pass on this. And he's absolutely right. Now, I have the video that he's commenting on. Let's go ahead and pull that up. But he's making a good point. Is this somebody who we actually want to emulate? Do we want people to emulate this? Now, the funny thing is, both of these guys right here that they're calling attention to, they're both 60. Well, I think Emhoff's like maybe 59, but they're both right around. I know Walz is 60 years old. They're both 60 years old, right? And they're like, I don't know. To me, they seem like they seem kind of, they're kind of bizarre, right? I'm 60 years old, right? Whereas we're the same age. I'm like, I don't feel like they're, and a lot of the people that I grew up with and my friends and people and contemporaries that I know that are my age don't act like these guys, right? They don't even look like these guys. So that to me is like the very first thing that I would throw off. But let's watch this clip right here and let's see what these guys, what they look and sound like, okay?
You guys are almost the exact same age, and it's about to be my dad's birthday. I won't say exactly which one. But would you say that 60 is the new 30?
Because you're 30?
Yeah, I just turned 30. I'm feeling old.
So funny, I was your age when you were born. And so I look at you now, 30 years later.
I was your age when you were born. Prolific, Mr. Dougie.
And it's so surreal. We're still parents first. Doing what I'm doing for love and for country and for our family and everyone else's families out there.
And he's looking good doing it, I might add.
Yeah, I don't think you can make an argument for that, Dad. You
No,
look 60.
I cannot.
No.
So these are the kids, right? And Tim Walz's daughter says, I don't think you can make an argument for that, Dad. You look 60. Let me just jump in here. No, Timbo, you look you're about 72 to 74 is where I'm putting you, or your actual age. I don't even know if you're telling the truth there, but you don't look 60. I know a lot of people in the late 50s, early 60s that don't look like you, bro. You have aged there quite a bit, but I love she says, no, Dad, you look 60. And that's I think that's Emhoff's kid, because he was. Did you know that he was 30 when he was born?
Look at this hair. I mean, yeah.
The same amount of hair.
Yeah, these are the guys you want to. These two knuckleheads right here are the guys you want to emulate, right? The guy on the right knocked up his nanny, did a bunch of stuff, but the guy on the left thought it was a good idea to put tampons in a boy's bathroom. Okay, you're not playing with the full deck. These are not people you want to emulate. These are not people that you want to. Karma Carmichael's in the house. Just saying. There you go. Karma's in the house. What's going on? Tampon Tim wants a piece of Dougie. Or maybe he does. I don't know, man. Yeah, Walz looks 75 to 80. Absolutely, right? When I first saw him, I said, like, that's weird. Like, why would you pick an older dude? Like, they're talking about age and stuff. Why would you pick a guy like in his 80s, right? Why would you, or 70s? Why would you do that? Honestly, if you told me he's 69, I'd be like, If you told me he's like 72, I'd be like, okay. But 60, no, that seems very strange. Yeah, he is older for sure. There's just no way. I mean, at least Emhoff looks his age, right? I mean, Emhoff looks the same, but Walz, I don't know, man. Something seems awry there. Something ain't right. Do people here think XRP price will drop due to the SEC appeal? I certainly don't. I don't think it has any bearing. The thing is, what doesn't change is that XRP is not a security. That's not being challenged here. It's the programmatic sales of Ripple. And again, where are you protecting which investors are you protecting there? Because that's the tenet of the SEC. Why are you hammering them? So we'll see exactly what that is. What's up, Norseman? OG of the show. Hippie age harder. I don't know what that means, but I did read the comment. There you go. There you have it. What else do we have here? Let's see. I had some other stories. I thought I had some other stories. I do have some videos to play, though. And there's a couple things that I could probably pull up here. Where is this stuff? Let me look here. Yeah, so one of the things, the criticisms we hear an awful lot of, we hear a lot of people dogging on Elon Musk. Now, based on what I saw today, which was absolutely beyond remarkable, Starship did take off. It's one of the largest rockets to ever, go up into space, right? It's one of the largest ones ever. And I have to tell you that I was incredibly impressed with what I've seen. I'm going to load up a couple videos here so we can kind of get back to the and I want to show you this, but these are the people like Elon Musk's a jerk. He doesn't know what he's doing. Meanwhile, this guy basically invested his money. He basically went ahead and took his this is the most beautiful thing that one of the most gorgeous shots I think I've seen in some time. But I want to play this one, and then I want to show you, where is this? There it is. Okay. So we'll see this from two different angles. So I'm going to play. First video is going to be of Starship taking off, and what a gorgeous angle and view! You really get to see the monstrous sort of size of this thing. Here it is. There's no audio on this, so I don't think there's audio. But anyway, you see this thing blasting off, and just look at the sheer power and that thing just flying. I mean, it's just such a phenomenal angle, and that thing's massive. It's huge. So this massive thing getting up in there, right here it is. Look at it again. Look at this thing taking off from the base. There it is, going up, right? And so one of the things that they do is they are going to return the booster rocket. So typically what you've seen before is that booster rocket, again, not on Starship. Starship's massive, but on some of the other rockets that they've sent up, it will go onto a little launch pad, usually somewhere set like in the middle of a usually in the water or on the side of the water, but it's a little launch pad. That thing will come down and it will land back. Well, Starship's pretty large, right? So where it took off from, the actual base itself, what you're going to see now is you're going to see two different angles, and you're going to see this thing land exactly where it started from. And it's going to be caught by these arms on the actual base. And so Elon Musk, he was talking about this, saying like, well, in theory, this is what it's supposed to do because they've not seen it actually do that before. So there's a giant crowd, and everyone's waiting to see, is it gonna explode? Is it gonna hit the bar? Is it gonna fail? Is it gonna blow up? Is it gonna miss it altogether? But here it is coming in to the bay right here. So as you see it coming in, firing, levels out, level sets, slows down, gets right in front of the arms, and then what you see, the arms, boom, grab it. Unbelievable. That massive booster rocket saved, right? Didn't crash in the ocean, and it's just remarkable. And here's one from the water. Here's a different view of this.
And in order to...
Hey guys, we should just be about 30 seconds away from our landing burn. It's going to happen in 3 phases. We're going to land at 13 engines per minute.
Look at how fast this puppy's coming down.
You can see it coming down through the plume.
It's just dropping, right? Heading right over to where it's supposed to be.
And I ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now.
Amazing.
You can see how fast this vehicle is moving on the left hand.
Listen to this crowd. Cool to see it from this angle. Saw it from the opposite angle before. But look at this as it comes in, slows down, he's right in there, parks itself, boom, arm grabs it, on. That's pretty remarkable, man. So this is the guy that they constantly dog over there on X. Doesn't know what he's doing. He's ruined Twitter. They still call it Twitter. He's wrong for America. He's endorsed Donald Trump. He's a nut job, right? This is what we constantly are hearing from him. You know, this guy is bad. Elon Musk is bad. Meanwhile, the guy takes one of the largest rockets ever been fired up into space and returns the booster into its base, right? So they just basically, you know, it used to be back in the old days before Elon Musk. He talked about this early days of SpaceX. He said that what would happen is they would return the boosters, and they're like, the media dogged them. No way, that can't happen. I even thought, like, I don't know, man, that'd be cool if you could do it, but it seems almost impossible. Why? Because it had never been done before. And they're like, well, Elon Musk isn't the scientist. He's not the guy. He's the leader, right? He was the guy that was leading the charge. You know, he was the guy saying, you know, it's the same like a Steve Jobs. We're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. Like, well, it can't be done. Okay, walk out of the room, because watch how we're going to go do it. So a guy who's actually leading the charge versus somebody who is just sitting there and watching. So it's pretty good. Yep, there wasn't a parachute in sight. That's absolutely great. Fantastic. Imagine if Musk decided to move SpaceX/Tesla to a different country. Also a good point. You never know. Yeah, this is a good question. Grotoshi's, how long is the SEC stuff going to go on? Who stops it? Trump? I sure hope so. Well, if Trump gets elected, he said he'll fire Gensler on day one. Now, it's going to take legislation. He can't obviously do it. It's a slogan. But you know what's going to happen? He's going to get elected. Day one's going to come. Day two is going to come around and be like, but you said you would fire him on day one, and you didn't fire him on day one. Well, they passed the legislation. They fire him. It doesn't matter because you didn't fire him on day one. And I got back into a little bit of a back and forth match with David Schwartz today, constantly going back and forth, boom, 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 playing a little bit of ping pong today. Excuse me. And it was based a little bit on, yeah, I mean, I could probably show a little bit of that to you, but we'll show some more videos here. But yeah, we got into a little bit of I don't call it a spat, just a disagreement. We don't agree politically. It doesn't change the fact that he's not, you know, a genius when it comes to crypto. I just don't agree with him on his political things, and that's okay. But a couple more things to get to before we go there. Let's see. These were two. So Byron Donalds was on one of the Sunday shows, and this is him here talking. And again, you're not going to get someone like a JD Vance or a Byron Donalds. You're not going to best them. You're just not. You're not going to get them with a gotcha question, or I'm going to fact check you, because they know what they're talking about. Both of these guys, you know, I think Byron Donalds would have made an excellent VP choice too, but they're just way stronger than the host. They outmaneuver him all the time. Listen to this.
Didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts.
How do you respond to that?
Very easily. I was working in finance during Barack Obama's administration. Let me tell you, the economy under his especially the last 5 years, was growing at about 1 to 1.5% per year. I think at the time, President Obama was saying that, you know, this era of large economic growth is something of the past. We're going to have a more consistent economy. Well, in his words, a consistent economy meant one that barely grew. So when Donald Trump came in, he brought his tax cut policy in, which cut taxes across the board for everybody in our country. Coupled the fact that he did cut massive regulations from the Obama administration. And what did we see? Economic growth in the United States went from 1.5% under Barack Obama to 3.5% under Donald Trump. Wages adjusted for inflation, like I said, because it's the truth, increased for every subgroup of Americans in our country. The wealth gap was closing. We were actually booming economically far more than we did under Barack Obama. So that's a cool statement he made on the stump, but it's not true.
Yeah, it's a cool statement, but doesn't hold any water. Okay, next question. You're not going to best a guy like Byron Donalds. He knows more than you, and he understands the left's going to try to, you know, give him some weasel question and to make but didn't. No. Sorry, you're going to lose that one every single time, Dana Bash. And this one here, you know that the media is desperate. Here is Kristen Welker. And Kristen Welker, who's a host on a TV program, who is talking to the Speaker of the House, and listen to what she's arguing for. This is, you know, there is absolutely a lot of panic going on, not only in the media, but in the Walls Harris campaign, they are getting desperate when this is like what's something you're concerned about.
People are going to vote on.
Just to be very clear, he hasn't released all of his medical records. He released 2 letters. Should he release the results of the cognitive test?
He's on display every minute.
So it's unnecessary. You can see that he didn't release his medical records. You don't want to know things like his.
So they're so worried about Trump's medical records. They were not worried about Biden's medical records. They don't care about Harris's medical records. There's any psychological thing. No, they don't care about that. They wanted Trump to release his cognitive test, but there was never a call for Biden's cognitive test, right? But now, what she's mostly fighting for here is his cholesterol numbers. This is when you know. This tells you everything you need to know. They are beyond desperate at this point. Nobody would give a rat's behind about any of this stuff. But she's like, real serious. Like, are you telling me we don't need it? Are you saying we don't need his cholesterol numbers? And I think he handles this pretty good. Let's listen to his response.
Cholesterol level, whether he's dealing with any issue that we may not know about, if he's going to be commander in chief. And he also said he would release cognitive tests.
Listen to your question.
Should he release that?
The American people. Kristen, the American people don't care about the cholesterol level of Donald Trump. They care about the cost of living and the fact they cannot pay for groceries because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have put them in that situation. The medical records are irrelevant. Let's talk about things that the American people...
Yeah. So again, once again, they don't care. They want to know why their paycheck goes even less than it used to. It doesn't go as far as it used to. It doesn't buy what it used to. Yeah, stuff is getting more expensive, but the dollar is getting weaker, right? Inflation, you keep printing money. How are you going to fix that? If you're Harris, you do nothing different. It's just game on, business as usual. So I thought that was well done right there. Well done from the speaker. It's like, well, do people really care about that? No, at the end of the day, that's not what they care about. And I thought JD was kind of funny here. This is, I think, every once in a while, JD Vance does something that's kind of funny, a little bit humorous, always a little bit sarcastic off the cuff here. But this one is good too. If you guys remember the debate, there was a lot of, I guess, questions about the particular earrings that Harris was wearing. They were saying that they were Bluetooth earrings, and then we saw another one where she took a call with those on, and she was talking to somebody on a phone call. Right, we saw that those were happening. And well, listen to his statement here.
Point this out. JD Vance has no idea what these questions are, what the topics are. No idea. We didn't tell him beforehand. There's nobody in his ear, no cute earrings. There's nothing like that. No. So I'm just reminding everybody that this is all organic, okay?
I left my Bluetooth earrings at home, so.
Sorry.
And this is the funny thing. It's like even on Saturday Night Live, which I wish we could play some of the clips. You know, they were doing one of the game shows, and Kamala Harris buzzes in. I can talk about it, but I can't show it to you because we'll get demonetized, and our show will be taken down because, God forbid, we use a clip to promote a show on a network. We'll be taken down for that. But anyway, she hits the buzzer, and he asks what the answer is. Right? It's and she says, I was born in a middle-class family and who loved their lawns, and I had 2 mothers. And so it's become this catchphrase. Like, this is the kind of things you don't want to be known for. You don't want to be known for the fact that you can't give a straight answer. You don't want to be memes be made about you. And that's basically all her campaign has become. Just nothing but a meme and nonstop garbage, right? So here we go. Here is a little bit of back and forth with David Schwartz that I had earlier today. It went on and on and on and on. I was like, where are we? Are we getting off this train at some point? And then some dude went off on me in like 40 different posts on X. And I was like, okay. And he was telling me, how dare I criticize someone? I was like, I wasn't lobbing insults, just disagreeing with somebody. And if you're going to express your opinion, I'm going to express my opinion, right? Fair game. You're on a free speech platform. We all have the same way to do that. So one of the things that David Schwartz took a little bit of unliking to was this whole fact. If you guys have seen, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but 60 Minutes deceptively edited an answer by Kamala Harris. They took down the original thing on YouTube, and they grabbed an answer from something else and made it look like they asked her a question and she answered it, coherently when she rambled on about BS garbage. So they did this. They talk about, here was the original one, here's the original answer, and here was the edited answer. Okay, that's malfeasance by a news network. Trump said this. Trump said 60 Minutes is a major part of the news organization of CBS, which has just created the greatest fraud in broadcast history. CBS should lose its license and should be bid out of by the highest bidder, as should all broadcast licenses, because they're just as corrupt as CBS and maybe even worse, right? So David Schwartz said, Trump's not a Republican. Trump's not a conservative. Trump's an authoritarian populist, and that's why people like him. So I was like, no, not exactly. So I said, what a ridiculous claim. Trump had the most conservative agenda of any modern president. I was talking about his first term. Authoritarian populist? Did you forget that he already served as president? If you're going to make absurd statements, at least back them up with examples. Schwartz came back with this, 60 Minutes, blah, blah, blah. I came back with Trump expressing what he'd like to see happen regarding journalistic misconduct is not the same as actually taking action on it, as demonstrated by his first term in office. David Schwartz said, if you don't understand why it's so much worse, he's inflaming violent anger and doesn't really believe in his own accusations, then you're beyond reason. So all of a sudden, I am beyond reason because I said him talking about a license and what that would mean. And he thinks that's mistaken identity. Said violent anger is violent as the leftist lunatics attempts to assassinate him twice. Who in the F are the violent extremists in your fantasy world? Give me a break. And there was another assassination attempt. So I basically let him know that there was another assassination attempt. But there were so many people talking on these threads that like I sort of lost the plot a little bit of like where this was. Here we go. Let's go. Here we go. Yeah. So if he said, if you don't understand why it's so much worse than him inflaming violent anger, I'm like, well, I guess you've overlooked the 2 assassination attempts fueled by the left's violent rhetoric. See the video. And that's the video that Jeff and I play where the left goes on for 5 minutes about you got to get in their face. You got to walk. You got to, you know, all about the violence, right? I said Trump is simply responding to the absurdity from the left. It's like when 60 Minutes edited the interview to make them preferred candidate look good. A free and open press is meant to fairly vet candidates from both sides, not manipulate footage and interfere with the election process. Of course, this should be called out, right? And then I put this video up, which we've all looked at and seen. This is Pelosi, and it goes on for 5 minutes about blah, 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 right? Jeff and I have played this many, many times here. And gosh, I'm trying to see where there's so many more back and forth. The problem is like it's hard to find the coherent thread here. Let's see. Who knows where it is. I might have to take this off and look again at the man. Yeah, but he went back and forth over and over and over with all kinds of people. It was just insane. Yeah, and I basically, I don't know why I can't find it, but anyway, it went on, and there's some other people in there as well. So like, you know, you can see, like, just look at this. This is just today, right? So you can see some of this starts up here, and then it goes, and then it goes, and then David, you watch the full clip and how it's been edited. I'm not saying Trump has the right approach, but surely you can see the news organization designing reality as they see fit. It's disingenuous, misleading. Let's talk about other things in other places. These threats of force against political speech are much more important than anyone's personal disagreement with the media's editorial choices. So you see how he's like picking things here? Oh, the media's editorial choices. An editorial choice which is deceptive and BS. And he never answered my question when I said, what about the left inciting all the violence? I mean, why do you think there's been assassination attempts? Because they've been, you know, calling him an insurrectionist. He was never convicted of being an insurrectionist. That J6 committee fizzled out. It was a big nothing burger, right? There was none of this stuff. In his Mar-a-Lago case, where they said he overinflated the value of Mar-a-Lago, well, that is in the appeals court. There are 5 judges that sit there, and what's happening right now is the attorneys are about to get sanctioned, and they're begging for mercy not to get sanctioned because they're like, why would you bring a case like this? And why would you not follow the testimony of Deutsche Bank that came in and said the only reason we gave Trump the actual loans was because he said, you know, they gave him 20 some other loans, right? So why would you They said it didn't even matter, and they do their own due diligence. So what is this about? There's never been a case brought like this. So what is this whole thing about? So now it came down to the last few hours were of the attorneys basically pleading for mercy not to be sanctioned because they're about to get the hammer dropped on them. This whole thing is going to be thrown out. It's going to be appealed, and it's going to go bye-bye like everything else is going to happen there. Guy on Earth says, force? You mean suggesting they lose their license? Surely there has to be consequences for this. Don't you want to live in reality? Just stop, please. I can't handle this stupidity anymore. We can read what Trump said. He said the government should give the company to someone else because he disagrees with the political speech. It's totally indefensible. Okay, so then what I brought up to him was like, well, that's fine. But the difference is the Biden administration actually got busted. It went to the Supreme Court, and they got busted for actually to going into Mark Zuckerberg and pressuring him about people's speech and banning people from the platform. And he said, well, that's legal. You can do that. You can pressure. You can pressure. They didn't make him do it. They pressured him. It's different. So he will bend and say anything he wants to be able to do that. But saying it's stupidity and saying this is dumb. Now, the thing about Trump is like a barker. He will bark. He will yell. He will scream. But he said the same thing when he was president, that the media is the enemy of the people. Did he take any licenses? Did he delete any of them? No. So yeah, you can sit there, but the difference was the Biden administration actually did do it. They actually went to the Supreme Court and they got hammered. So there's, and again, he wouldn't go back and forth. But that's about all I can say about that. But anyway, it is time here. I know we ran into there are a lot of elitists down there. I do agree with you, BMAC, for sure. Champagne socialists, multimillionaires that tell us all is well in the world and can see that these socialist policies are taking us to hell in a handcart. Agree with that. Zed says, just goes to show you very smart folks are not right about everything. That is also a good, true statement. BMAX says you guys should just show up to swell and vlog the interactions. No, it's so funny because what was also surprising to me was Ray Fuentes, who used to be with, what's the name of the company he used to be with that does the early IPO shares linked to. He was denied access. And Ray's only ever just covered good things. Like he's covering the ecosystem and stuff. But funny thing is I can't go now anyway. I've got a conflict. Jeff has a conflict. We both had conflicts. So listen, I really don't care. I was going to actually say in one of the posts, David, so I did invite him on the show, and he said, yeah, it probably wouldn't. I don't think Ripple would be real happy with me going on your show. So we can talk about that maybe on the next time. But again, there were so many of these posts on X to try to find them all is going to be. But he did. But look, he gave me an answer. He's like, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. I don't think that Ripple would want him going on there talking about this stuff. And I doubt that they even like him talking about politics. So it was a good, fair answer. And I appreciated him like getting back. And I'm like, hey, fair enough. Maybe what we'll do is, put the questions to Ripple, show him some of our interviews that we've done and keep the questions that are approved, by Ripple, that we're going to ask certain questions. We don't have gotcha questions. We say, if we ask you something and it's uncomfortable, just change it to whatever you want. We don't want to ever put a guest who is going to feel uncomfortable. We don't try to nail people and do gotcha stuff. We want it to be an open and an open dialogue. We're not trying to put somebody on the spot. So maybe that's our next course of events. We'll reach out to Ripple PR and see if we can get them on the show and have a fair thing. And we won't bring up politics because it's probably not a good idea anyway. It's okay, we disagree. And I said that in one of my posts, like, hey, it's okay if we disagree. I admire what he's done for the ecosystem and what he's done for the XRPL, and of course, and his ongoing work there. But it's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. I've got friends that I've had long-term friends forever and a day. We know not to talk about politics. Sometimes that doesn't work so well, but sometimes it does. So it's just better not to talk about politics and leave it at that. At 589, baby. There you go, bitches, right there. Smash the likes. Please smash it, guys. Really appreciate you guys. You're a class act chip. I really appreciate you, Cash Velocity. Thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of people disagree with us. They come on the show. They come in the chat. They say so. So what? We believe in free speech. You have the right to say it. Now, if you're going to be lobbing personal attacks at people, that's not cool. But if you're going to just come in here and disagree, okay, fair enough, right? I'm a believer in free speech. And you can say, people come here and Chip, I don't agree with you. It's stupid. You're dumb. And then most of the time that devolves into what people say on X anyway. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You'll have some personal attacks. Great. But let's stick to the subject. What are we talking about here? What's your, and there was somebody, if you go back to that, if you find that post by David Schwartz, you'll find that somebody put a whole, I want to say like 25 post and outline their position. And all I did was thank them. Thank you for adding the context and for a very thoughtful answer. And I basically said that because they were saying it was my enterprise and I'm disagreeing with people because of our podcast has gone downhill because we now talk about politics. And I'm like, okay, but it probably wasn't the best move for me to start talking about politics on my personal handle, because I have an anonymous, X sort of handle that I would only exclusively talk about that. So I'm going to alienate 50% of my audience just off the bat, but I feel like it's too important. And it was disingenuous of me not to be who I am when I watch everybody posting about, I hate Trump and I hate this and I hate that, and not me be some kind of a, true to myself and post what I feel and what I think is right. And, you can disagree with me. That's fine. That's what makes the world go round. We're not going to agree on everything. Sometimes we can find some middle ground. And I appreciate that David Schwartz gave me an answer on coming on the show. It was like, that was great. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for supplying that, and we'll see what we can do. And we don't want it to be about that. I'd rather have a conversation with him about what's going on in the XRPL and what's going on at Ripple. We don't have to talk about politics. Matt Hamilton and I used to be friends, and it devolved into the fact that he blocked me and we don't talk anymore. And again, there's another guy that he just did a debate with somebody from the Bitcoin camp, and he crushed it, right? That's what he's great at. But if it always had to be personal attacks on me and you're stupid and you believe this and you're in the stupid conspiracies and you thought that, okay, but you keep it at the topic at hand. Let's debate the actual subject matter. Otherwise, it goes nowhere. But anyway, that went up in a bad way, and that happens. And Zed says, we disagree, but it's worrisome when you've been waiting for years to see price results, so make us more worried. Elon will land rockets on Mars in 5 years. Yeah, you're probably right about that, Zed. And what we'll still be talking about, the pathetic, the cost of, or I would say the price of XRP. But that's all I have, guys. Come on back on Wednesday night. We'll be doing this all over again, 8 p.m. And Jeff, like I said, is going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's got a heavy schedule ahead of him. It's just that, he's going to be super busy. He won't be able to join. He's fine. There's nothing wrong. He sends his love. I talked to him right before the show. So he's got a busy schedule coming up. So you'll be with me. We'll be doing this solo. We'll be workshopping it together, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday night. Have a great one. Have a great week. Let's see, keep the faith. Decentralization is freedom, and we'll all get there together. See you later, guys. Chip out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.